Hey guys, today I want to cover 6 different tips that I feel like would have gotten me a better chance of getting into my dream school. And as you can tell by the making of this video, I did not get into my dream school, but it's fine. I'm happy with where I'm at right now. Let's get right into it. So the first tip is to be more forward when you're asking for recommendation letters. So often we don't talk about recommendation letters, right? It's like that one kid in the back of the classroom that nobody knows exists. Like, recommendation letters are actually very special. They're very important in the sense that it gives a reflection of who you are from the standpoint of a teacher, right? But the only advice that I've ever been given was that you need to ask your teachers a year in advance, half a year in advance, so they have time to write the letter, but not really much else. But I think there should be so much more that has to be done before you ask the teachers for these recommendation letters. First of all, these teachers don't even know you yet. Like, maybe you're in their class for 1 hour a day for how many weeks? I don't know how many weeks are in a school year, but they don't know you. Like, they've only been with you for such a limited amount of time. Plus, it's also in a classroom setting, so they basically don't know you at all. Like, even if you're their favorite student, you hand out all their papers for them, you know, you hand them the pen that they dropped in the middle of class. Like, it doesn't matter. They don't know you that well. Even if you do these nice things, like, it doesn't matter. And some people respond to this by sending their teacher like their resume or their activity list, so the teacher can know some of their activities better. That doesn't matter, because it's like when the teacher has that sheet, like, maybe they'll understand you a little bit more, but also the other thing that will happen is they will get some of the information from that activity sheet and write it on their recommendation letter. And this is very bad for you, actually, because the thing about the Common App is you don't have a lot of space, so you need to utilize every single space that's allotted there for some new information. So if your teacher recommendation letter is repeating something that you have already in your activity list or in any of your essays, like, that is a waste of space, if you get what I mean. Although people in the past have recommended coffee chats, I do not recommend this because teachers are very busy people. I've never had the luxury of having this coffee chat with the teacher, and the other thing is it's kind of a waste of time. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're spending 1 hour talking to the teacher, you might as well do that in writing. It's like if I asked Nico to do a surgery on Giant just after 1 hour of teaching her how to do surgery when I don't even know how to do surgery. No, I believe you. Moving on. So because of the few scholarships that I've applied to, I've seen my counselor's recommendation. I still faintly recall them like emailing me saying most students don't get to see their recommendation. I don't know what the point of the email of that was, but I saw my recommendation and I feel like it had a very particular format, right? I don't know if this is the same thing for everyone in different schools, but our counselor sent us like a PDF form that had blanks in it, and she wanted us to fill in the blanks with some information that we had. And we essentially sent this PDF to her, and when I read the recommendation letter, it was exactly what we put on top of the blanks, but like worded different. Like, there's words, you know what I mean? Essentially, all the information that was on the PDF was transferred onto the recommendation letter, and this got me thinking that, wait, this is actually a really ingenious idea, right? Because teachers are busy. They don't have time to understand you the way that you understand yourself. The teachers need to have some sort of relation to you and whatever like stuff that you're doing, so that they can write the truth about you, and they can, like, it's kind of like they're verifying the truth, if that makes sense. But before you get the wrong idea, I just want to say I don't like my counselor's letter, because what the content of that letter was is exactly my activity list. Like, it was almost word by word what my activity list was about, and it showed 0% of who I was outside of my activity list. And I feel like this was a huge negative impact on my application itself. And in fact, let me go through a few things to tell you. So what should have been on a letter, according to my past research, was number 1, how have I changed the school environment and influenced my peers? Number 2, how have I influenced my school community as a whole? Did I make clubs? Did I organize a fundraiser? Did I participate in student council? Whatever I did, how did I change the school environment? And at that school, I literally founded a student council because it was a very small school, and she didn't write that. It would have been so helpful if you included all that stuff, but she just wrote my activity list there. There's no point in rewriting the same thing twice. So this is why I wanted to tell all of you this ahead of time, and that when you're asking for recommendation letters, this is what's going to happen. They're going to ask you for your activity list, and they're going to copy your activity list, most likely. However, one of my teachers who wrote my recommendations, one of the best recommendations I've seen, he told me and discuss with me what he wanted to write. But why did he do this? He did this because he wanted to know what light to frame me in. And I don't know if this was intentional or not, but the fact that he did this made sure that the stuff that he wrote about was not the stuff that I wrote about, right? And the stuff that he wrote about was true to his knowledge, to the extent of his knowledge and his participation in the activity that I was in. And just a small quote from that letter, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember what was on the letter, but it was something like this. Nico put a screenshot on the screen. He is one of the top 1% of the students I've taught. He had the initiation to self-study APCSA and came to me for help and resources. He completed all of the practice tests and self-graded them to prep for his AP test. Now, as you can see, I feel like this is so much better than reiterating your activities on your activity list. Like, there is no point in doing that. Like, these teacher recommendations should be a different perspective on who you are. They should speak to a different side of you that you can't express in your activity list or in any of your essays because of the word limit. I almost said time limit. We don't worry about that. So maybe just a few questions you want to ask your teacher so they can answer these questions in document number 1. A comparison of you with your peers. What makes you stand out? What makes you unique? Specific qualities and specific examples, maybe in the classroom or outside of the classroom, of what makes you unique. Number 2, how have you influenced your peers inside of the classrooms and outside of the classrooms? This can be either group works, this can be anything. Make sure that if you want to ask them these questions, that you have some examples already in your mind. Don't make them think, okay? Don't let them think. Have everything that you want them to answer already in your mind, and phrase it in a way so maybe they can understand what you're trying to say. You can ask them if they want an example, and if they say, sure, give me an example, then you can bring that example up, and that maybe they can use that example, right? It's just all about the way that you phrase things. If you want them to include these things instead of just copying your activity list, you need to put this foot out and make the effort to do this. If you want to link a few resources like what I did, for example, I linked the MIT teacher recommendation resource page for my teacher. I just showed them because I think they had examples on there. They had different stuff that they can look through, because your teachers might have experience doing recommendation letters, but maybe the recommendation letter experience is not completely accurate. And I'm not saying this to be rude, I'm just saying this to be blunt. It's like, teachers do not know how good their recommendations are because they've never had any sort of evaluation or any sort of like criteria, at least most teachers, in my opinion, from what they've told me, because I feel like the teacher recommendation does not get enough rep. It is so important, and I should have realized this from the very beginning, but in hindsight, I was so busy catching up with my essays and whatnot that I didn't pay attention to this. But please, if you're watching this video, this is so important. Please, 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 please get this done. Think of it as another one of your essays, because the teachers are incredibly busy. They're just gonna copy paste stuff into a template that they have. Maybe some of them do this because they don't have enough time to write the hundreds of essays that they need to do for these recommendation letters. Because think about how many students ask them for recommendation letters, especially if they're popular teachers. That is so many recommendation letters. I don't even think I can write that many recommendation letters. So moving on to the next tip, that was very long, but the rest of them are pretty short. So let's speed run through them. Second tip is to pick the courses that fit your intended major. I forgot to do this in a way, because essentially when you're in high school, you want to have your path laid out already, because a lot of schools probably don't have these different courses that you can take. But if your school has these courses, if you live in a city, your school has a lot of resources and a lot of different teachers for different subjects, like, you should do this. You should have a path already in your mind. Let's say you want to do bio, you want to do CS. Take more courses in that field. That way your whole application feels more structured, and that way the college admission office would be like, oh, I can see this kid specializing. That's great. Again, this is for if you're aiming for T20 schools, otherwise you should be good to go. So moving on to the next tip, taking AP language studies. I meant to say subjects there. Nico, cross out what I said. But essentially, when you're in college, for most of the non-STEM majors, you will need to have this language course requirement. For computer science, there's this like BA, Bachelor of Arts, and then there's also like the engineering equivalent of that. Anyways, what my point is, if you learn a language before you step into college, that might make your journey easier, maybe, because you'll be placed into a course depending on your skill level, right? And it's just totally up to you. But I recommend that if you are a heritage speaker, you polish up on your listening and speaking skills, and just do your best. So the next tip is I took the ACT twice, even though I got a 35 on the first test. Like, there is no point in doing that. Your grades do not matter on the points themselves. Your grades as a whole just need to reach the benchmark. So when I had a 35 on my first test, I didn't need to take the second test, because when I took the second test, I got a 34. My score dropped. Whatever score range your school is at, that is what you should aim for. You don't need to aim higher, okay? So if your school says that the maximum, the 25th to the 27th percentile is something like 28 to 31, right? You just need to score at least the 28, and you're good to go. You don't need to go above. I would recommend that if you are at least at the 75%, then you're safer. But like, if you're in the range, I wouldn't worry about your score that much. Focus more on the other aspects of your application, your activities, your GP. What are the other stuff? Whatever I said, whatever I mentioned, Nico, put them on the screen. Just throw it at them. Second to last tip, fifth tip, I kind of lost count along the way. Not applying to enough colleges. So I applied to 70 colleges, but I wish that I've applied to 20. I've applied to more, because the thing about this is, when you're trying to aim for this like T20 range, you don't choose colleges. The colleges choose you. So when you're in this conundrum, you need to apply to more like reach schools, if that makes sense. Nico, throw the schools that I applied to on the screen. So as you can see, yes, I did apply to a lot of colleges that are quote unquote high ranked. Yes, I'm shooting my shot, and it's very competitive, right? Each of these schools have probably like admission percentage of like 4% to 9%, somewhere along that range. Probably higher for some of them, but it doesn't matter, because like, for example, Nico's school on the QS Global Report ranks higher than my school, even though my school ranks higher than Nico's school on the national ranking. It doesn't make sense, but like it doesn't matter, because like the rankings aren't consistent, right? Like, you shouldn't pay that much attention to them. Just apply to the schools that make you happy. That is all that's important at the end of the day, is that you apply to the schools that make you happy. But like 20 of them. Don't just apply to five of them. Apply to 20 of the schools that make you happy. Last tip, we're finally here. I've been recording for 30 minutes already. I wish I paid more attention to my additional essays. Like, all this time, I've been paying attention only to my Common App essay, because that's like, I rewrote it like 6 times, because that's how much importance that I've given to it. But the additional essays, the supplemental essays, are equally, if not more important, because such a common mistake that people who've applied to like over 10 colleges have made is just, they've done the same thing that I did. It's just, we don't look at the supplemental essays that much. For number one, the name supplemental, you view it as like, oh, it's just supplementals, but no, it's actually very important. You should hold it to the same standard as you do to the Common App essay. And if you want to know what that standard is, you should go ahead and check out this video over here, which can give you some idea, hopefully. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. I'm about to hiccup again. Thank you for watching. Don't subscribe. Bye.